was meant to serve as a decoder ring for all that bootstrap bullshit they keep trying to sell us. That's right. Whenever you hear some well-paid commentator telling folks that the answer to all their problems is just to work harder, what they really saying is, I don't care about your circumstances. Your circumstances don't matter to me. You don't matter to me. Whenever you hear some rich asshole from a think tank go on and on about the virtues of the free market while ignoring those ill-affected by any semblance of a free market, what they're really saying is, as long as I ain't gotta see them, as long as I ain't gotta be them, fuck them. And I'm sorry if that sounds crass, but that's about as accurate a translation as I can give. And this song is about that unfortunate translation. So the next time you turn on your radio or your television or go on the internet and you hear some fool say, let the market sort it out, well then you'll know what it is they really saying. You'll know what it is they really saying.
Get yourself together before it's too late. Good evening, everybody. It's Divided We Stand. On the 6th of November, 2021 at 9:12. It's good to see everybody. At least some of you are here. And big news. Our David Price is back from his mega cruise. 2 weeks off, and he's back now. So before I do introduce him formally, let's not forget, please subscribe. If you have already subscribed, please share this. I know last week this was shared on Discord. We're going to try to get some subscribers and get to 100. That's our next goal. It'd be really, really nice. And don't forget also that we're on the Facebook group page, Divided We Stand, and that one's doing well. But, invite your friends, because as you'll find out tonight, it's going to be important that we work together to get things done, because there's a mountain to climb, folks. In any case, without any further ado, I would like to introduce my compadre, my co-host, my friend, the writer, the teacher, the talker, the everything, and that would be David Price. Dave, great to see you. You're back
that's
from a
me.
cruise.
Okay. Hey, I haven't been on TV. What this is? What is this? It's not TV. Wait a minute.
Yeah, you have to center yourself in there.
I know.
You're at the bar here. There's only so much room.
Well, I shouldn't probably be there. So
well, you can be there. You're not going to.
I don't mean drink. I mean, I just start stumbling. Listen, Brian, really neat introduction. Except I do have a couple questions about it.
Sure.
Okay? Very much. I was looking at it, and I know you very well. To me, it was very homoerotic. The flute, the candle, very phallic. The wave surf. Were you trying to send some messages out beyond the obvious that Americans?
No, I was trying to get any type of Creative Commons old videos that I could get.
Yeah.
Actually, I was trying to give the dichotomy of what was going on in the spoken word versus, capitalism, so to speak.
No,
and it had, right. Why not show something from the 50s or these old commercials? It kind of works.
And again, my job is to tie in your strange things to go. But there's really a truth to that. I mean, think about that. Okay. Much of what we're facing today comes out of GREED. Not that the Republican Party or the Trump Public, whatever you want to call them, is the sole, what should I say, the sole benefactor or deviant of greed, depending on your view of that. But I like the fact that we're going all the way back, because so many times, and we'll talk about that tonight, things appear, it's brand new. Not really. One of the scariest things, and I'll come back to it again, is the Republicans seem to be much better at long-range planning. I would submit tonight, and we'll submit all the time, that what we're seeing now actually, I suppose, it goes back to the beginning of the country, but if you really want to look at the modern idea, at least in 1968 with Nixon, and I would suggest the seeds were sown with the 1960 race between Goldwater and Kennedy. Now, that's enough for that. We'll come back to the show. First of all, thank you for having me. I also question your calendar ability. I only missed 1 week, not two. But
it's been 2 weeks.
That's not what you said. He hasn't been here for 2 weeks. Because Judy and I argued over that.
It's been 2 weeks.
But I will say this. It's a funny thing. It's a very funny thing. As I've said before numerous times, thank you very much for doing this. First of all, for you doing it, and then for you creating it, and then for asking me to be on it. And it's really helped me with the things that I do, too, because if anybody wants to go back and see what a god-awful person can do on one of these shows, look at the first 7, 8, 10, I don't know, maybe up until last week, until you get comfortable with it and you really want to do it. However, this is really important. Sometimes you need to get away from things to know how important they are. What did Joni Mitchell say? You don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Right.
And
it's gone.
And I think, I was able, even though now that we're, Brian, that's a good question. What do we call this? We're still in the pandemic, but we can move around. I don't know. Because people say, now that we're out of the pandemic, well, that's not true. And I'm even guilty of that sometimes. So I don't even know what to call this. So I'm saying now that we can travel around, whatever the hell that is. I've been to a few places and always been able, it was Virginia, New York. I've always been able to get into the show because I make it a point. And last week, I didn't see the show because I've been to see.
It was actually turned out to be a pretty good show, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I told you. I mean, you're
I mean, the
very
conversation was great between the audience and
Oh no, no. But what happens is it was interesting. I know you don't cruise, and many environmentalists.
I did
Definitely.
cruise long ago, but
No,
yes,
no,
I
that,
don't.
that not. We're not talking about Soho, and Greenwich Village, but yes, Anthony, as always, Anthony. I was born late, and I'm hoping to die much, much later. The idea, though, is that I truly, and I truly
They're all
miss
saying
being on
hello
the
to you,
show.
Dave, by the way. So
I think, thank you very much. But I'm just saying, I really, I mean, that's not just words. I'm saying, I really, like Joe's, as I told you, Brian, we hadn't talked until today because, I've been lost at sea. But there was an internet connection, and I thought, oh, good, man, we can connect. There just wasn't enough internet connection. To explain it to people, to go just any website, to go to just any website was an adventure. I mean, things that come up instantaneously might be a minute, there just wasn't enough power. So my point is, thank you, and that's the viewers who tune in. And you always say, "Oh, thank you for doing the show," whatever. No, it is. It's just something that becomes something we need to do. And I did mention to Brian today in our massive preparation, which was about a 4-minute phone call. That
that's right. We're actually
that
better when
was.
we don't prepare.
Oh no, I agree.
It's
I
like
agree
there's
with
an
that.
inverse relationship between preparation and quality.
Well, because I would get disappointed if we really prepared this
That's why I
show. I go, oh
think
my
we'd be
God,
good.
this
We're both good in debating because these
right.
people who have to prepare, they think they're going to kick ass. We rely on past knowledge, and we're not going to worry
Well,
about
and we
specifics.
also what I think is good. And again, it's just like when people say, "Well, were you a good teacher?" I said, "You have to ask my students." I mean, I'm not being humble. They're the ones. It's the same with this show. Is it a good show? It's the viewers. But I would say we also respond pretty well to their questions, their comments, and that makes it more inclusive. I think and I'm sure you've seen speakers like that. This is not a show of speakers, but they've got their agenda and they just rush through it, or they do it very well, but they forget that you're supposed to respond. I mean, we could be talking about X. Somebody brings up Y on there, and you have a duty within a few minutes to talk about Y, if you're going to really, because we're not experts. We're just two people who feel strongly about an issue, and not that we change our position. We started this show, and I'm the optimist, and you're the pessimist. Not just in general, and I shouldn't even say that
Right.
because it's both. It's two different ways of looking at reality, right? It's not. But now, the longer this thing goes, and we'll talk about it tonight, I'm not real sure. Let's put it like this: I am not a betting man, but if I were, I don't know if I'd bet on American democracy lasting another 16 years, which is 4 national elections. But anyway, let's plunge on the show. Brian, I always ask you first, and so we're going to do that way. I don't like routine, but that's a good one. So I would say, what are you concerned about? What are you worried about? What are you seeing out there? And one last thing I want to preface that with: it's not that there aren't good things going on in the world, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ever think that. It's not that. It's when you're a beautiful person and you have a toothache. What do you focus on? You focus on the toothache. So yes, the world is a wonderful, beautiful place. But right now, we got something far worse than a toothache going on in America. And that's why we do it the way we do. So Brian, what do you
Okay,
see?
two
What are you worried
things.
about?
In two general things, I want to actually comment about the toothache thing, if you don't mind,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
the issues that I've been having. So I'm going to go in two directions. One, we've seen what's happened with the elections a few days ago. We've seen this onslaught of Republicans trying to take over this and that, which we've talked about ad infinitum. Today, I wanted to look at the media that they use. They literally look at little bits and pieces of their media
Right.
and how they attack, because this thing has spread so far. It's gotten as far as Russia. So if Russians are hearing about this, why are they hearing about it? But not only that, just so many different pieces. Now, you mentioned, we have a lot of things we have to do and be worried about ourselves. And I read an interesting article, actually, again, from a Russian psychologist who was trying to explain to people, why aren't Russians out there protesting? I mean, there's a lot to protest there, right? I mean, it's all kinds of crazy shit happening. But he went into Maslow, with the hierarchy of needs, and you start with the physiological needs, Dave, and then you're moving up to safety, social self-esteem, and then I'm not even worried about the fifth level because I don't know if any of us are self-actualized. But he said that basically the problem in Russia is that so many people are really in this Maslow hierarchy where they just want to get through, the first couple levels.
Right.
So they can't be worried about it. Now, there's 10% who are idealistic. Now, what I'm saying to you is, Dave, and I'm going to get us both here. What I'm saying to you is, maybe we should apply this to our country in the sense that, we say, well, why didn't enough people come out and vote? And I do have some positives from that Virginia election. It can't be all bad. But Dave, is there something to that? At least forget about Russia. Just think about us with Maslow, with people with certain needs.
I think certainly Mr. Maslow had it pretty right. I'm not big, I think there's a lot of theories that, or postulates or whatever that aren't true. I think that is one that, and then you're following it, I think is on the right track in this sense. The way I look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs is you can't really move up unless you have the base, right? I mean, if you look at it, it's
there is conjecture, but I believe there has to be that.
When you get to self-actualization, you have to fulfill all the others. Now, there's a couple ways to react if you're hungry and whatever at the bottom, right? Those basic needs.
Right, the physiological and the safety.
One is you can rebel and fight the authority. What I mean? That's one way, right? The second way is you almost become dulled and you're just trying to get day to day. Leave me alone. I can't think about the future. I've got to think about today. And so I think a lot of people are there, and more as as the economy, we'd hopefully by now progressed maybe not out of capitalism, but certainly I would say today, and this gets while people are forced down there, right? You have this 1%, whatever you want to call it. It was the robber barons, the Vanderbilts, the Gettys, etc. 100 years ago in the Gilded Age, and the statistics now are showing, and you have to be careful with statistics. We know because they can bend them, that income inequality in America is greater now than it was in the time of the Gilded Age when that was the highest. It is now the equivalent, if you could balance it, with the right before the French Revolution. That was a revolution. In many ways, yes, it was about freedom. Yet it was about those rich bitches. I mean, it's what is it? It's apocryphal. It wasn't said, but Marie Antoinette let them eat cake.
Right.
And that's the political end today. That's certainly the wealth today. So yeah, I think one of the reasons you don't know which.
But it seems to apply to the Democratic Party more than the Republican Party. Those motherfuckers come out to vote.
I want to make sure,
and we'll get to the media on that.
Help me out. What do you mean by that? I mean, it's me, not you. It doesn't understand it quite. What are you saying there?
Well, even myself. Now, again, I live in a Republican district, but these people, and we've said this before, Dave, and you've agreed that they hate us more than we dislike them. They literally hate us.
No question.
They are so angry. And we'll get to the reasons. And again, I think it has to do with manipulation. But Republican voters come out. Okay? Now, there is an issue with Virginia because, and maybe this is a positive, because don't forget, he was at arm's length from Trump. And he could not attach himself to Trump.
I want to talk about that tonight, how effective.
So that's kind of a victory for us in a certain way.
Contraire, my friend. Again, just like I would defer to your knowledge, you were there in New Jersey as you personally almost let a blue state become red. Now, I'm here. I wasn't here. I can now, obviously. I've said since I've lived here, because it looked like it was never pink by the time I got here. It was already into kind of the blue. And so what the hell happened? And there's a number of reasons for it. And so I think we do need to talk about that tonight, both because you say, well, wait a minute, what are you guys, stuck on your states? No, there were only two major elections, right? The gubernatorial race in New Jersey, where I happen to live for a long time, you live now, and the gubernatorial race in Virginia. And I think, honestly, I'm more concerned and more surprised. There's no way in a state with the Democratic majority that New Jersey has that that election should have gone 12 hours, so close that 12 hours transpired before they called a winner. So I'm not saying as bad or good. I'm not comparing what happened in Virginia, certainly, but that was less surprising to me than what happened in New Jersey. And
But
again,
didn't
Brian,
they do the same thing, though, both candidates? They
well,
both
see,
tried to stay at arm's length of Trump.
and I think that's true. Now, again, because I'm here in Virginia, and in this very usually voting district of Arlington County, and Arlington County is the closest county to Washington D.C. And so it kind of becomes the center of Northern Virginia, which is a Democratic stronghold. Yes, Fairfax and these surrounding counties, but so Biden joined. And I hate to do this. I'm going to say it once. I'm just going to call him Terry, because today I was referring to him as losing candidate Mech Awful, like McDonald, Mech Awful. And that's not. I mean, that's something Trump would do. That's childish. I don't think that Terry did run a great campaign. I think that, and I'll pick on Youngkin just one time.
Wasn't it basically
I think
like Hillary? And she just
well, I'll tell you what. I just got a chance. I mean, I just got in late tonight. I was talking to a friend who's politically connected here. I mean, we talk politics all the time here, and they were his exact words. In fact, he said, if possible, Terry ran a worse campaign. I kind of disagree with that, because I think Hillary, let's say, circumstances and Hillary and overconfidence, and really, had she won, it wasn't really. I mean, the fact that she lost made her overconfident. Does that make sense, Brian? In other words, I was as confident as she was that Trump could not win. So now it's, oh yeah, you were overconfident. No, I mean, the stars had to align, and they did. I know. I think what happened. The base. There's a couple arguments, and I'm not sure which one holds. Loudoun County, which is another very influential, wealthy county. It once was rural. It's building up. And because there's just nowhere else to put people in Arlington, there's nowhere else to put people in Alexandria, there's nowhere else to put people in Fairfax County. So it was once farmland, then suburbs, and now it's just filling up with people. That has been identified by the national news media, who I still have somewhat, every day I get a little more suspect of them, as ground zero for the CRT debate, because it really exploded there. And unfortunately,
as a gift to the Republicans.
Unfortunately, in this day of sound bites, you have to be careful of every single sentence. You can't throw one in that, taken out of context, they could use. Now, I've heard the whole thing, and Terry was trying to explain basically this. Yeah, parents, but at the end, the school board has to make the decisions, right? Because it's not about your child. It's about what's good for the whole group, and that schools should offer alternatives. And unfortunately, in that string of words, trying to explain that, something to the effect, I'm not sure this exact quote, but this is how people heard it. It's close enough. Parents should not decide what their children learn in school. Okay, they took that, they ran with it. I had the opportunity, living here, to attend a protest by the Loudoun parents, which transpired against the Department of Justice, because the report was that the Department of Justice would act against, anything that was against critical. I mean, it's just so fucked. But anyway, and they were very rational people, very reasonable people, misinformed a little bit. But one thing, you don't mess with people's kids. That's kind of the sacrosanct. And the other thing that scared me, and I mentioned that on a previous show, but I think it bears reporting tonight. So I'm standing there, and this guy comes up who thinks I'm part of them. I mean, I wasn't identified with them. I was just talking to them, but because I'm there, and it just took me a little bit aback. He comes up, he says, "Hello, you're great. You're true patriots. I'm here to help you. I'm from South Carolina, and I'm a patriot and part of the Sons of Liberty." Now, there are many Sons of Liberty. One of them actually is involved in, it's some good things. But this Sons of Liberty was a precursor to the Proud Boys, etc. in South Carolina. Has been there for years. So what happens is the Republicans are benefiting by Democratic mistakes, right? Not
but there's another angle which we're going to get to, the way they take that, right, and it spreads.
Well, you don't give the opposition
opportunity. Well, they'll make it up anyway. That's the thing.
Well, that's true, but you certainly don't hand it to them.
Right, I agree with you. You don't hand them. You don't give them anything.
If somebody's beating you up, you don't say, "Oh, this doesn't hurt bad enough. Here's a hammer. Hit me harder." Right.
Right.
Then they have this. To me, there are two. And there's many more. It's like there's millions, but two fringe elements out there. Well, I suppose you could say three. There's just the Donald Trump, the cult of Trump. That's one. And I like the name they've come up for him, Cult 45. Play on the words. Since we're in a bar, a play on the words Cult 45, malt liquor. The second kind of crazy is this, we'll fight for our country. I mean, these people, I've had a chance to talk, they believe they're patriots. They believe they are the sons of
I'm going to put the stop sign right there.
One more, and then I'm done.
Okay.
The third thing is, Brian, just so we talk all about three groups. The other is QAnon, who we'll talk about tonight. So all of a sudden, you've got reasonable people, okay, but they're upset about something, and then they're joined. Well, and the other group would be the evangelicals. So I guess but all these people who really don't have a lot in common, as you mentioned in the early show, hatred or fear for what the Democrats who are communists or socialists, and literally, I mean, think about that. It literally. Eaters of children. I mean, not symbolically. I mean, they believe that. So you've got all these groups, and you start adding them up. How are you going to combat that? You got to get everybody out. So go ahead.
Well, that's why we're out tonight. So I want to show you some short clips, but multiple ones, so you can see where I think I'm going with this, right, and we have to battle this. So I'm going to go to the internet here for a second. I'll leave us on, Dave. Actually, I have to turn. There might be a little bit of a feedback here because I have to put the internet on. It'll have you doubled up, so just hold on. Let's watch Rudy for about a minute, and then I'm going to move on to something else for a second. Just short clips, folks, but just pay attention to this because I think we're going to be able to get somewhere with this, and we have to battle this. So here we go. First clip. Hopefully this will work. Make sure this is up. All right.
To teach our children in the way they should be taught. To have America in the 30th position, 40th position, 45th position on reading, writing, arithmetic, to have great deficiencies in the teaching of history and geography and in comparison to other nations is first of all,
I want to go back. I made a mistake here.
Giuliani, and I'm back with another.
I like that one.
I know that's important, but there's something he says here.
Today we're going to follow up on our discussion of the election a few days ago. We've now had a few more days to consider the impact of the election. And there's one thing that comes out of it that I think we should seize on immediately and go full speed ahead. I think the opportunity is there now because of the opening that's taken place with far greater knowledge of the very, very insufficient performance of our public school systems to teach our children in the way they should be taught.
Okay, right there. Let's stop right there for a second, David. I'm going to go back to our bar scene.
I don't know how you said this. I'd like to go because I'm getting older and I have these senior moments. So if we can attack this now and then your next clip, I know you're trying to build something, you will. But I like that we'll stop and you get the next one.
I said we can stop. We're okay?
I actually took notes. And I very
okay, well, the reason why I want to stop at this one, first of all, on the one hand, we can see that they've got themselves a plan, and they're all kind of sticking to this thing about, we have the right to do this, and then the teachers are taking over, okay? And it's effective because I get, texts from my asshole cousin all the time about this. On the other hand, think of the logic of this, Dave. I mean, Biden's been president for a short period of time. The school year just started. So we don't even have the fucking scores. So if there's any scores that he's talking about and the performance levels, it's from that guy before him. So it's fucked up. So, in other words, they're using this misinformation or disinformation, rattling it around, and then they're making it work for themselves because now the people believe this shit. And then when we go back to Maslow, this becomes like second on Maslow's hierarchy of safety. They think that we're going to fucking take over and, we're going to have the hammer and sickle. So it takes care of everything so simply. They're going to take over. The scores are going down. They're telling you what to do. You better get your rifles.
Well, here we go. Okay. I try to consider, and I really do try to actively be, ever since, I guess, 68, I use that as when I became politically active, to be nonviolent. I think that's very important. Violence, there is a time for it. I'm not going to say that, and I think as human beings, when we get angered or get in a rage, we tend to use violence. I'll give you an example. But first, I want to preface it this way. The last time, let me think how old Michael was 40, roughly, our son is Michael, let me think, 47, 6. So what's that? 42 years ago. This is me, nonviolent me, Dave Price. I was at home. We had a neighbor. My son loves sports. He hit a ball into his yard. And my neighbor, who was older and granted drank too much, started cursing my son out. I heard it. I ran out. I'm going to kill you, motherfucker, were the words out of my mouth. And thankfully, my neighbor tackled me. Now, why do I say that? That's the area you don't mess. So what they've set up so well is those Democrats, number one, they're making your kids ungodly, right? Well, the right is more religious than the left for the most part. Oh my God. Brian, do you know why, and everybody's American, do you know, the Supreme Court says you cannot use the Bible as religion. It doesn't say you can't teach as literature. I taught it as literature. I taught it as philosophy. I taught it as comparing history. But teachers are scared, and I understand that for that very reason, and they don't do it. So if you really want to talk about who took God out of school, get the Supreme Court to change. Rudy's got 6 of them on there now. That's number one. But this idea is so damn effective, and that's why it's so scary. And Brian, listen to this. And I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to everybody. Okay, I agree, Veg. I agree. And I mean, there's a couple. There's a couple other examples. I try not to, but most all of them involved. And Brian, my reputation as a teacher. I never fought for myself. It was when I saw a teacher went after a kid. Right. You know what I mean? Just wrong. That's wrong. Okay, they're being developed. So I understand that. Then you look at it. Okay, so wow. And then the test scores. Okay. I'm going to have a very, very radical idea here. Take all the fucking test scores in America and burn them. And here's why. The SAT, which is supposed to be the test, I'm going to college. I got 800 on my boards. Well, they've dumbed it down. That's number one. Number two, for those of you who took it when it was 1,600, now you can get a 2,400, the total. So if you get a 1,600, which was perfect score when I took it in the 1960s and was still in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, that means if you get a 1,600, you only got 2/3. It's not a right and wrong. I mean, there's just so much wrong with that test. But here's the big thing. Every study that has ever been done on it, there's one link to the SAT and success. One, only one. The higher your SAT score is, the more likely you are to stay in school your freshman year. Let me repeat that. The only correlation of this test, which everybody puts all this emphasis on, is that if you score high on the SAT, you're not as likely to drop out. After that, there is no correlation to anything. Secondly, with tests, I can pick them all apart, and anybody can. It's not just me. And to be a standardized test, and this is the way it works, and states don't even do this. First of all, you can't have A and B, C. You know how they do all of the above, none of the above. That throws the whole thing off. You need to have 4 questions, basically, 2 of which are patently wrong, one of which is called the attractor. And what the attractor does, if you're not sure, you will go to that answer, right? And I'm not going to go into great detail. If anybody wants to do that, call me up. I'll explain it all to you. I studied quite a bit. And then there's the right answer. And that's supposed to reduce guessing, or because, you should be attracted to that answer. Now, I guarantee you, and I mean, people laugh, no, I guarantee you, if you were to give the state test that we give, or you give in Jersey, and I gave for years, every member of Congress would pass that test, right? I mean, we say they're dumb, but they're going to pass that test because it's not a high school. They say it's a high school proficiency test. You can't do that because very few kids would, in a poor school. So it's not. But basically, so let's say they do. My question is, how many, if you could design such a thing, you can't. How many of congressmen pass the moral test? How many congressmen and women and presidents pass the empathy test? How many of them pass the compassion test? How many pass, we'll go all the way. When I say love, that idea of agape, Greek love, the highest love, no unconditional love for your fellow man, for others. So as far as I'm concerned, when anyone brings up testing in anything, now if you say, well, Dave, you're crazy.
Testing is with us forever now. I mean, assessment.
Whoa, my friend. I'm going to dispute you for a moment. It is in certain levels. But do you know colleges more and more are throwing out the SAT, they're throwing out the ACT. And now some of their reasons aren't necessarily the best, maybe. But I'm just saying, why have this test and put all that pressure on kids when it's meaningless? So, but I think at the state level, and I know, the only state I know is New Jersey. I don't know anything else other states. The way it was is businesses were saying, and this goes back into the 80s, the kids are dumb. Now, you can't use one example, but I got to do this. Just because if anybody isn't aware of this, anywhere of this. So my wife, Judy, for years ran an art gallery and framing shop in the city of Bridgeton, the county of Cumberland. And she was a former teacher, and the people who owned it had been former teachers and principals. And so they were always hiring, they would take, after the 2 schools opened, they would take 2 students, good art students, and let them work in their senior year and make a little money and get some experience. And this was a good art student. And they were having a discussion just one day, all of them. And then this young lady said, Africa was the topic. She said, yeah, I'm going to drive to Africa someday. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, now, whose fault is that? That she was, whatever. So, to me, 2 things. Number one, if you are a thinking person, throw every testing idea out. It's meaningless. However, what the Republicans have been able to do, and Brian, you caught right onto it, what they've been able to do is isolate this issue right now. Joe Biden has no impact on anyone's test today. It comes from the Trump.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's.
And you want to know? You want to know the 7 lowest states?
But it doesn't. Again, and you would agree that it doesn't matter. I mean,
I'm not saying it matters. But what I'm saying is, it's easy to refute. They're not going to believe it. The 7 lowest test scores of the 50 states all are run by the Republicans.
Right. That's the next step. Yeah.
Now, you want to know something? They attack California, they attack New York, they attack Connecticut, they attack New Jersey.
Right.
There's the 4 states that vie for number 1.
Right.
California,
Massachusetts.
If that says that, and I'm sorry, yes, and Massachusetts. So if you really want to play the political game, states controlled by Democrats have better educational systems than states Republicans. So what you're really saying is, what he's not saying, but what you say is, yeah, Rudy, I agree with you. Let's get rid of all the people like you. And again, whatever happened to Rudy Giuliani, and some people who I know well say nothing happened to him. This is what we're seeing now, Brian, and this is scary, is the real Rudy Giuliani. Nothing has changed. It's just a moment was presented to him, 9/11, And some people really close to him said, yeah, he was anti-Muslim before. This gave him his pulpit, and he
Right. Well,
rallied around the flag.
This is the problem I have, though, Dave, is that you've got a lot of people like Giuliani with these YouTube channels, with these Facebook groups.
Brian, you're absolutely right. Look at that. Now look at the back.
And look at the subscribership. You've got almost 600,000 people subscribed to him. Okay.
Well, but Brian, bring it down again. I know you're talking about. I'm talking about. Look at that set. Everybody out there.
He's got his own book there.
No,
his
doesn't
own
that look?
His branding it's all branding because he's got his
but look
coffee
at that
mug
set.
with his name on it.
That looks like an impressive set, and so therefore the man saying that has to be right. I mean, we're visual people, but we don't listen. We look. So if you look at that, right? If you look at that set, well, I forget his book, forget all that other stuff. Just look at that set. That guy's got to be right. And then if he ties into something you're thinking, of course he's right.
Right.
So, Brian, you were right on the money, and you've said it all along, and you're 100% true. I come from the using words as a weapon, propaganda. You come from using advertising and marketing as a weapon, visual propaganda. And what was it? I don't know why I'm thinking of Vivian Lee now, and that got me thinking of Gone with the Wind. But as that idea, as God is my witness on the well, my point is that's a very moving thing. And as God is my witness, the God that I don't believe in, the Republicans, to a person, no, but to a group, they are much better with propaganda and manipulation.
It doesn't take that much to do that too. We're already.
Well, you're right.
We have to we have to fight this, which is why I'm doing this tonight.
Well, I know that, but here's another problem with that. I'm gonna show my ignorance
because I'm gonna bring this asshole on in a second.
I'm gonna use. Actually, I use this talking to musicians on the ship because a lot of them came from Memphis and the black church and etc. So let's start there just to show you the difference. Black church, happy, singing, jumping, dancing around. In the Methodist church I was raised in, we sat there and listened to whatever was going on. No emotion. Here with this, the Republicans who were certainly now united in their disdain for everything else. It's not the Democrats would do it if they could. They just don't know how to do it. You've said it. I've said it.
Well, it's getting late, isn't it, Dave?
Well, yeah, it is. But I've said.
You said yourself, and by 2025, whatever, we could be done.
My son, Michael, who I listen to, and we argue, but he loves politics like I do. He said today, if the Democrats were smart, because they've rejected James Carville, who to me, and James is a little old for that, they would get the Lincoln Project, who are all Republicans, and just say, we're going to give all the money to you, you direct the campaigns. Every Lincoln Project campaign that I've seen is better than anything the Democrats have.
Right, it's pathetic.
And why? Are they better? No. They know how to go for the jugular. They know how to cut. They know how to influence. So it is, and look, it is messaging. Whether it's a mistaken message, which McAuliffe said, whether it's, I don't know if you had a chance to show that clip I sent.
By the way, folks, when Dave says McAuliffe, he does it on purpose.
Oh, well, it is now. He's McAuliffe. I mean, it's like the McDonald's. I mean, it was McAuliffe. He knows better. He shouldn't.
But isn't that the DNC's fault? And by the way, now I'm going to take a quick dig, not so much at the DNC, but the progressives here, and I consider myself a progressive. The people involved in the environment got all behind Kirsten Sinema, because she was Green Party. She believed, everything with the environment. She was liberal. And then what happened? She turned around, and I think it was kind of like a Republican thing. They don't want to lose the election, so they have either one of these candidates that come up. It's a win for them. So they bamboozled everybody with the Green candidate.
Here's what you got.
Now she's the biggest asshole around.
My son and I were arguing at length. He thinks the extreme left is the problem in the Democratic Party. I do not.
I don't either.
I think it is.
Their heart's in the right place.
Middle. No, the middle. That's what I'm saying. The middle. And unfortunately, the middle, look, let's be honest. You know, I'm not real sure. I'm going to exempt Biden not because he needs an exemption. Biden is a better president as long as he's not dead than Donald Trump.
Right.
Just by being Joe Biden. End of story. Now, but everybody else, they're beholden, they're bought. You know, as I said, at heart, I'm an anarchist, but my problem with being an anarchist is you have to have another plan. You can't. Steve Bannon is the ultimate anarchist. He doesn't want.
And not only that, people are dangerous. People are fucking dangerous.
Well,
your neighbors,
yeah,
your neighbor you were just talking about, where you say, I'm not the fucking killer. You were dangerous to him, and he's dangerous to you. Doesn't take much.
And I will guarantee he's been dead for a number of years now, but I will bet you every cent I have he would be a Trumper today.
Okay, may I add this, Dave? I have to add this because you're going to find this interesting. 2 nights ago, somebody was banging on our door at like 11:30 at night, and it was not friendly. It was like ready to break the glass. So after the first time, we thought maybe it was just a branch or something like that fell on the roof.
Right.
And it happened again. You know how your adrenaline gets going before a fight?
Oh yeah, no, well you're
Ron
being
says we got to call the
maybe.
cops.
Sure.
So I called 911, right? And I took it a little bit too far. So I said to the receptionist, I said 911, and I gave my name and my address and all that, and I told them exactly what's happened. I said, look, you need to send somebody out here because I don't have a weapon, but my adrenaline's going. And then she said, sir, you got to calm down. You know, we don't want any kind of things happening. I said, no, fine. I said, but you need to send somebody out. And they did. And that actually got them out there faster. But, you know, Ronnie made a good comment to me, like, you got to be careful how you say that because my adrenaline was going, and I kept thinking I've got an intruder's ready to try to kill me, where it could have been a 17-year-old kid playing games and running around the neighborhood.
Well, you said something, though, that's very important. You do not have guns. If you had a gun, and it doesn't apply, you wouldn't have, but just say you did, okay? It might have been very bad if he were or she were deemed an intruder, but just as bad for you. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so that's exactly what happens.
Well, that wasn't the trooper that was banging. That was some asshole kid, you know.
Well, but okay. You know, maybe, you know, for me, it's kids. For some people, it's their home. You know, their home is their castle protect. And what the Republicans have been able to do, and that's a great analogy. You weren't making it. They have the idea they're in the House, not the guys pushing the money. And there's somebody out there who's literally a Democrat knocking on your door.
Right.
And you need to stop that right now, or he or she or they are going to come in. Now, depending on where you are, you can portray that as an immigrant. You can portray that as a woman. You can portray that as
minority.
A Black American, a Native American, a Mexican rapist, and the list goes on, wherever you are. And again, I would say, as far as I'm concerned, the Democratic Party, and I don't consider myself, I am a liberal, is better because it's more inclusive than exclusive.
Right. Now I want to go to this next asshole.
But that doesn't make the people they elect any better, right? I mean, it just makes them better.
Now, Dave, these clips, I mean, they use different things, but it's kind of like the same scare tactic. Okay, so this fucker,
exactly what it is.
Mark Levin. I've never liked this guy. I mean, first of all, never liked him. I can't stand watching him.
I would hope that I don't like anybody who likes him.
This motherfucker. I mean, I can't tell who's worse than the next. Let's just watch this guy for a second and see what happens here. And here it is.
The host of Life, Liberty, Levin right here on the Fox News Channel.
It's a plug.
Great one. Just a quick reaction to that. I mean, you know the people that go to these military academies. We've met them. They're the most amazing people on earth. They're willing to risk their lives, sacrifice for their country, work so hard. You would think there would be some type of creative way to solve problems short of our way or the highway.
What's happening throughout this country, listening to those wonderful patriots there, is that the government is weeding out people who just don't go along with authoritarianism. They're weeding out people through these vaccine mandates. Many people who have the natural immunity, they're going to be fired with an unconstitutional illegal mandate from Joe Biden. The federal government doesn't have plenary police powers. The states do. And OSHA has no statutory authority, that is the Labor Department, over vaccines. If any department did, and they don't, it would be HHS, and notice they didn't issue any regulation. So this will be defeated, but it's the mentality, it's the totalitarian mentality.
I'm going to stop right there, Dave, and I'm going to come back
that's
to
a place to start. There's so much wrong with that. You go first.
Absolutely. Everything he says, first of all, he says it with a certain boldness, okay? The charisma. And it almost sounds like it's right. Not because it's right. It's not. Everything he said was bullshit. And everything he said was projecting. You know, like a psychiatrist say, he's projecting, calling us totalitarian and, you know, Biden an autocrat. And they think they're the victims, which kind of relates to this judge protecting Rittenhouse. So this kind of crap is on 24/7. And he's frequently a guest of Hannity and a few others, Laura Ingraham. This son of a bitch, again, he's out there all the time spewing this nonsense. You've got Giuliani, so that's just two right now.
So,
and I'm going to go on, and then I'm going to show you another thing.
Let me take Lebanon just a minute. That was brilliant. Full of lies, distortions, mistruths, but listen to the words he used. Those patriots. Now, let me ask you something. And again, I'm asking you not you the answer. I'm just asking everybody out there. Now, I don't know. I've never served in the military. But I do think I know something about what the military should do. And I think that would be to protect America. Would you agree, Brian?
That's their job.
So, what I would submit is, if you really want to protect America, wouldn't you get vaccinated? Isn't that protecting America? So technically, to me, they're not doing their damn job. It has nothing to do with my rights, your rights, common sense. I think the military has every right to say, don't. I mean, they say how long your hair can be. You know what you they. So if you want to join the military, and somebody says now, the reverse is not true. If they say nobody get vaccinated, right? Because that's wrong, you're not protecting it, and you can't say some of you do and some of you don't. The military, I mean, again, one of the reasons I would never serve in it is you must do it. Then, the word authoritarian. Anybody who is a Republican has no right to accuse anyone else of any party of being authoritarian because there is nobody, no party in American history more than the current moral morass of messiness that is the Republican Party or Donald Trump, who is more autocratic, more authoritarian, and more fascist. I know people get attacked for comparing Trump to Hitler. I will say this: that is a little stretch right now,
until it happens.
No, right today. But as I would always say, and they didn't listen, but I just say, well, Adolf Hitler wasn't Adolf Hitler until Adolf Hitler became Adolf Hitler.
Right.
Like, he didn't establish concentration camps on his first day. Right. It took a time, and the parallels are frightening because prior to the modern media, which allows all of us to be effective with propaganda, the greatest propagandists ever assembled on the planet were those they brought into the Nazi Party in Germany. It was the beginning of film. They had, today Hollywood. No, Berlin was the capital of film at that point. America was behind. And Hitler gave some of these great directors a choice. You can do what we say, we'll kill you. That's okay, I'll do that, right? And and you're right. Now, having said all that, do I think Mark Levin should be censored? No, you can't, because if you censor something like that, you have to work to get people. I don't know how you do this, but I'm just saying you have to get work. I talk real well, don't I? You have to work to get people educated enough or understanding enough,
or do what we do and try to combat the shit that they say.
Well, but I'm just saying. I mean, you have to understand what truth is and what's not. Truth has nothing to do, Brian, and this is one of my things. Truth has nothing to do with politics, and God damn it has nothing to do with religion either. Okay, it has to do with a thing is or it isn't right now, or I don't know right now. They're the only answers, right? I will attack anybody on this who says I know what happens when I die. No, you don't. You have faith, you have a belief, you have a system. We don't know. Uh, people attack. There was actually someone on the, and I want to get to that later, so I'll save that the second part of the show. But I'll just jump in here now. This is the first time in a long time on that ship. It was down, and it was kind of interesting, where I was in the minority of where I live, because here it's liberals and Democrats. 70% of the those attending that were Trumpers. We all kind of agreed we wouldn't talk politics, but it always slips in, and I let them because I wanted to hear what they had to say. They watch that, and they don't have enough sense to discern what that is. That's what they want to believe. Now, notice how they went military. And again, I just want to say one thing on that ship. Okay, remember we're dealing with we were dealing with what's left, not of the greatest generation, but the early pre-boomers, right? The group there, 1938, 1940, say. Boomers don't come into play in the terms, which is stupid, until 1946, and they're the patriots. And that's what they think. Well, yeah, a patriot fights for his country, but a patriot, you have to have a new definition of patriot if you're going to say what the insurrectionists did is patriotism. That can only become patriotism if they win. Does that make any sense? I'm not sure I'm making sense. But what I'm saying is they're insurrectionists. In other words, the people we hold today as these heroes, Washington, anybody who fought in the revolution, they were traitors up until the point they were able to form America. And that was a good thing. But this, they're saying, no, I mean, not that you can't do it. And I might do it if I really thought the country was being taken over. I don't think I would do it violently the way they did. And I certainly wouldn't weenie whine and cry when arrested. Did Martin Luther King cry when he got arrested? Did John Lewis cry when he got his head bashed in? Did Schwerner and Cheney and the people that were killed down there, protest? Did they? Well, of course, dead people can't cry. But I said, no, they said, this is important, we'll do it, and we'll serve. If this is so important, do it and serve your thing. Don't cry to the judge. And I want to get ahead of myself, but I got to say this. I do not understand, and he doesn't deserve to give me an explanation. I do not understand what the Justice Department under Merrick Garland is doing, and I'll even give it.
That's the question.
Well, or not doing. Now, I can't speak to every legal proceeding ever done, but I covered a lot of them as a reporter, and I've never seen one case. Granted, the numbers were large. 4 times, not once, not twice, not 3, 4 times. A federal judge in the D.C. where the cases are heard has said, I don't understand. This is not a plea bargain. It is a good marriage. Do you know what these people did? And gave a stiffer penalty.
Yeah, he's like Mueller to me.
Well, no, it's not. I'm just his people too. I mean, these people, I might not vote. Of course, I'll always vote. But I'm saying at this point, I don't know that I'd vote for. I mean, I don't like the Democrats, but they were more liberal. But is it better? I mean, is it really better to have ineffectual liberals, who can't do anything? Maybe I will decide I'll find a candidate and not waste my vote, because voting third party is not wasting your vote. You just have to find a candidate, whether it's Ralph Nader. Hopefully you don't find a Christian Sinema who's duplicitous. I mean, that's allowed. You're allowed to vote for the John Andersons. You're allowed to vote for the Ross Perot's, whatever. I mean, that's not, you're probably not going to win, but if at this point, I don't see that, again, and the squad, AOC, and the women with her, Liz Cheney is being very brave. We can't make her heroine, because as I've said before, and it is true, just look it up, she has the most conservative voting record of any person. All we can say is, my God, how stupid can they be? She deviates it from it, and the person who has the best record, the best voting, now is suddenly the devil.
Right. Dave, I want to move on with this. It's the same material, but because this is a site that I didn't know about until today. I'm on exchange for Russian speakers wanting to learn English, and I get to speak with them. So this guy from Tomsk sends me some information.
Now, may I say something, Brian? Because I don't know what it's. roughly, I mean, get as close as Tomsk on the St. Petersburg side. Is it on the Moscow side? I mean, so big. It
Well,
doesn't really matter. But
most of the population in Russia lives in Western Russia, which is Eastern Europe, near Moscow. You know,
I was
up
gonna
in
say
that.
from that
That's
side,
this is
right?
all generally in that area. Okay.
Okay.
So he says basically, I'll tell you what he says. I don't want to put it up here, but I got to put it a little bit up for a second.
Okay.
It says, it seems to me there are liberal states not well with a law and order. The people prefer to settle down in Republican states. And he's just talking shit. And then he says, you know, you don't believe that Trump is a Russian spy, do you? And I said, no, but I said there's a coincidence of once between Putin and Trump, and that's what happened. And then he sends me this shit, which, by the way, I did check on the National File, and there's, you know, they've been sued. This website, this conservative, crazy-ass website.
So I'm not familiar with this particular one.
No, I'm
The
not
National
till
File.
now, and they have
No, but I'm
everything.
saying, we want to establish that is indeed a conservative
This is a conservative website.
that goes out to people, not as noted as Fox, but could reach anybody who tends to read conservative sites. Yes.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, this was a problem because I started looking at this, and they're talking about, the Russian guy said to me, you know, about Biden's crazy sex life. And I said, what? I said, the man's 78. He's lucky if he can even have sex. And he sends me this shit about Biden's daughter going into the shower with Biden, and she has a diary of this. I mean, well, you're laughing.
I'm sorry,
but it doesn't matter because
I know. Well, Brian, I know. My thing tonight is that is as crazy as what I thought. This is what's scary. I thought I had this week's beyond crazy story. That is even crazier than what I'm
right.
going to bring to the
And
table
look
tonight.
what they do. They go after what they consider any type of rhino. Like you notice here near you, David says, Jen
Right.
Kiggins voted with Dems on transgender bathroom. Now she's trying to ride the red wave. He says, rhino. A rhino alert here. You know, Virginia's. So they're after this Virginian here. It's just nonsense. And then, I mean, I can go on and on, and I will just quickly. It's about leftist violence. All it is a page dedicated to leftist violence with, you know, goats, satanic rituals, and this is the picture they paint of us, and people believe this shit. This is, again, Dave, this has to be combated. Now, we're doing it here in Divided We Stand, and we're only dealing with, you know, but...
And here's the danger, Brian, for me personally. I can't speak for anybody else. Despite all this is going on now, you have to be very judicious with censorship. And it's a protective thing. If you censor, they censor, ba 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 boom. Now, what I will attack, and I'm getting very, very tired, and I said I wouldn't do this, and I tried as long as I could to be, I was a journalist for a long time, and I don't like to sit back and say, well, in the day we did this, we did that. I could do a whole show. I'm not. If anybody tells you journalism today is not the way that it was, I'm going to give you two examples why that is true. Find me a Walter Cronkite. That person does not exist today. Okay? If you want the other side to print, which I spent all my time in, this is true. Jeff Bezos, whether you like him or not, bought the Washington Post. He's expanded it. They just did this week. I haven't had a chance to see it. People are praising it. I guess they went in depth and detailed the war room in the Willard Hotel where the insurrection was planned and who was there. They've got they got things going. So they're doing great work for the most part. But around that newsroom, and I've been in there, they have, I don't know how to describe it for people, but you're the NASDAQ board that runs all the time. They have that, and they're charting all the reporters' tweets, hits, whatever. Now, if you make it to the Washington Post, the only word you can go up, and it's questionable whether you go up, is New York Times. So if you get there, you want to kind of stay there. So there's many ways to write an article and still be true. So you slant it a little bit, not just to be attractive. Okay. For example, here's something people don't understand. Quick journalism lecture. The headlines are always more inflammatory than, or appear to be more inflammatory than the stories. But there's a simple reason for that. It's not even about boredom, although it's something about it. City council erupts in argument over what to be taught in schools. That takes up too many counts. It's too big. So you use, Joe Councilman hits, or whatever. And it's just the shortness of words, and they're more punchy. Anglo-Saxon words are more punchy than, whether you're talking about sex or anything else. Latin words from Romantic languages tend to be longer. So some of that comes, but now we're seeing that it has to hit, right? So it's not. I'm just tired of journalists not doing their job and putting things in context, and it's not because they're Democrat or because they're the Republican. It's not slanting it, and I'm tired of seeing that too. It's just that they're not that good right now, and really, honestly, this is sacrilege. What I'm saying. Outside of the fact that Rachel Maddow speaks the truth, okay, what's the difference between her and Sean Hannity? That's a huge difference, right? It's a huge difference. I just said she speaks the truth. But in the sense, if you don't believe that, she contradicts everything your boy Sean says, so she has to be lying. And that's where we are. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't like Joe Biden, so I know, since I don't like Joe Biden, he gets in the shower naked with his daughter, because I know that because somebody told me that he once petted a girl's hair, and I know he's part of that. And the one that just still drives me crazy is the Comet Pizza. It's the only one I can really speak to. All this pedophile, blood-drinking, witch things took place in the basement. Every friggin' story that's ever appeared. I've been there. I've eaten there 30 times, maybe, over the 10 years I've lived here. There's no friggin' basement in that building.
All right. Well, we know it's bullshit.
That one fact throws everything out, right?
Now, I was going to show you Dan Bongino. I'm not going to show him. I'm sick of him too. But
I don't know.
I want you to see this Bruce Schrader, this judge in the Rittenhouse. And
oh my God.
this son of a bitch. Now, there's a couple I'm going to show you, but this one I was like halfway through. But listen to his shit. Let me see if I can get this set up right, Dave. I do want to make this right. Okay. I have to go back to, it may echo folks a little bit, but
that's fine.
Finally, prosecutors discussed how they wanted the judge to not allow defense attorneys to call Huber, Rosenbaum, and Grosskreutz the words arsonists, looters, and rioters. Here's what the judge had to say.
And it is. You're going to tell me that if you in final argument said to the jury, Kyle Rittenhouse is a cold-blooded killer, that would be, you don't think that you'd be allowed to do that?
I think I should be. I think I should be allowed to call people a victim, too.
Why can't he call the victim an arsonist if that's what he thinks he can prove?
There will be 20 jurors.
All right. Enough of that, but...
Well, Brian, if what I've read about it has held, I'm not the least bit worried about what that verdict will be, because if it is indeed guilty, that is the just verdict, okay? If Kyle Rittenhouse is found innocent, there will be a motion for mistrial, for judicial misbehavior. They will fine for it. Now, again, when you get to the Supreme Court, who knows? But there will be some, that is a poorly. I mean, that was. I wasn't there. I'm going to comment on it anyway. Just
well, you saw that. That was there, and you saw it.
I'm just saying that's not. Yeah, I'm not a legal expert, but again,
if that guy's not on Rittenhouse's side, I don't know what is.
Well, look, the one thing a judge must be is impartial. Now, the nice thing is the law says that if a higher court, it doesn't matter what you think as a judge, and that judge may really believe he's being impartial. But if you're not, you can't just say, well, I wasn't. So he will be judged, and I believe he's showing partiality, as do you. And I, again, being, kind of away and just like this, but am I correct? Did I hear somewhere or read somewhere this week, just in short, that the defense is presenting that Kyle was threatened with his life, that he believed he would be killed if he didn't.
He looked pretty relaxed to me going down the street, high-fiving the cops.
Well, there you are. That's which of course is always.
For a guy that's scared, he didn't look too scared to me. I mean, if I didn't have a weapon, I'd be pretty scared.
Well, yeah, and we got to start. I've been remiss, and I apologize to our audience. I'm really much better. I've been on kind of a tirade tonight. I haven't really looked at what people are saying, and I need to look at that because I we do value. We want to react to them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That. No, I'm not really sure, Sandy, about that. I apologize. I should be more informed for this show, but I was out doing my other job that makes some money for me, and unfortunately couldn't be as into the news. But I know there's something going on with that, and the problem becomes, you know, it, look, how do you say this? Charge Joe Biden with anything you want. And I guarantee you, Donald Trump has done 28 things worse in that very vein. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. Yes, Joe Biden was charged in a Me Too incident one time, and he may or may not be guilty. Only the woman and he know. Donald Trump has 27 Me Too's. Now, maybe some of those 27 are those gold diggers trying to get it, but not all 27. And remember, one case, and all it takes is one, is proceeding through the court. And we know that now. The governor of New York, Democratic governor, not a good person. All right. Thought he could get away with it, bully, had help by his journalistic brother, which, that's hard. Brothers should not cover brothers. I mean, Cuomo on CNN should have recused himself from, he should have taken a leave of absence, paid leave of absence, and researched something, or let him research a book. But they allowed him to comment and set his brother up. He was charged criminally, okay? This is not just civil anymore. These are criminal charges depending on your act. Now we come back to your friend, your favorite attorney general of all time, Merrick Garland. Okay? I've got the fact that you want to cross the T's and dot the I's. But damn it, you're going to tell me between Matt Gaetz, the 6 congressmen who met with insurrectionists the day before the insurrection, and Donald Trump, you don't have enough to move on one of them?
Right.
Now, if Democrats were conspiracy theorists, well, they're bought. No, it's not that. I can't explain it. The only thing that I can explain, if I thought it were true, and I'm not sure anymore, is they're waiting to nail the. So if that's really what's happening, pick the weakest case, put it up. If you lose it, you still got 7, 8, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Flynn, just okay, you lose one, but maybe it'll help you win the other. All you got to win to reassure those of us who believe that Trump is the Trump administration was the most corrupt in the history of America, and we have to wait 100 years to find that. And there's been some other corrupt. None of them have been squeaky clean. Even Obama was about as clean as you get, but there were some problems there. In my time, you got to do something.
Well, I think you're going to have to have a coup. I said this at some point. If they're going to keep doing this, Dave, at some point Biden's got to talk with people and say, "Look, we're going to have to do something because this is out of control. We can't stop this wave."
I'm not saying that isn't an option. Certainly, it is an option. But from what I understand, and I don't understand government as certainly as well as, I was talking to an extreme liberal the other day, and I agree with him. When this is done and settled, and Mitch McConnell is dead, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, Mitch McConnell will be looked at as one of the master leaders of the Senate. If what you look at is just using the senatorial powers that there, you can use them for good, or you can use them for, and there you are, Veg, there's a name I forgot. Thank you. Steve Bannon. How much do you need?
Right.
Now, Brian, I'm going to ask you, because like I said, I was kind of...
It's the fact they didn't show up.
Is there any movement other than we're going to do something with Steve? I haven't seen
nothing.
I haven't seen it be charged
Zero.
yet. I contempt. Look, okay. And I didn't really like the story, but I like it. You go out and do something, right? And then be summoned to answer for it, and just say, "I'm not coming." You don't think somebody's going to come and arrest you for not doing that?
Right.
And what Bannon did is he said, in essence, clearly, I don't give a fuck. You don't have any power. I'll do whatever I want. Now, again, sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, since Brian and I share education, we look at teaching not as the end all be all, but there's a lot to learn there, just like in every job anybody had here. Can you let a student do that in your classroom?
You can't.
No. As a parent, you can't let a child do that. Okay? I actually ran into that. A parent who was vaccinated, their child said, I'm not getting vaccinated. Oh, yes, you are. I was never domineering. And I'm sure that, Michael, my only son, got the vaccination the first day he could. Both my grandchildren got it the first day they could. But say whatever it was. No, you're going to get it. It's just like, oh, as a 4-year-old, I want to stick my finger in the electrical socket. Part of being a parent is guiding. Part of it is explaining and understanding. Part of it is love. But part of it is keeping your child from doing something that's destructive to him or her or to others. Mr. Bannon, I don't care. I mean, he's not even with Trump. What he is, trust me, he wants complete anarchy from the right side. And we don't normally think. We think all anarchists come from the left. Au contraire. He wants to just tear it down, and having nothing is better.
Well, he'll take Trump. First of all, he respects Trump in terms of strength.
Well, no, no, he doesn't. Well, I'm saying yes. There could be some of that, but what it really is Trump used Bannon until Bannon. The reason Trump dismissed Bannon, 100% sure of this, is Bannon started to get more ink than he did, and Bannon was speaking out, and Trump can't tolerate that. Bannon was using Trump. Trump was using Bannon. You see, again, when they need each other, they're back together, right? Now, let me try an analogy here, right? Okay. I'm not even doing it. I'll just flat out. Yes, presidents have executive privilege, right? They can pull certain things out. When it could jeopardize ongoing American projects, and this is a weird term, reflect badly on America. But the question is, Trump is no longer president. Does that still apply? That's open. In the past, presidents have granted it to other things. They haven't. But the key thing is, you can only use it for people in your employ. At the time of what a lot of what they're looking for, Steve Bannon was not employed by the White House. Well, you can't give it. Well, you can go out and give executive privilege to the girl who gave you the cup of coffee this morning, Jim Jordan. Look, it's very simple. All the evidence, there's got to be a trial. All the evidence points to the fact that Jim Jordan did not participate in molestation of athletes, but covered it up.
Right. So it's like the Paterno thing.
Yeah. So the problem becomes, and this is kind of where I am, and we'll make a couple comments. We'll probably end early tonight, just because, whatever. No, I'm just saying. But here's what happens. Here's where I am tonight. I like to do this, Brian. We kind of do it, but I want to do it more formally with this show. Okay? And this is my attempt tonight. I have no use for the Republican Party. There is no such thing as the good Republican person in office right now. I've seen good Republicans that I sort of admired turn. They're bought in. I don't know if they bought into Trump. They bought into, this is a way to win. Once you start supporting evangelicals,
they bought into the ends justify the means, and they'll do anything.
And that's right. That's exactly right. And in their case, the ends are winning and then doing
right. So it's okay to fucking cheat.
Right. Well,
and that's what you don't like, because now that's their thinking.
It's already to have a man who would score 0 on any moral inventory be your president.
Right.
Now, let's move on to the Democrats. None of them are enamoring me today. They have the power to do certain things. Do them. And I'm not going to buy that argument. The 10, liberals are holding that up. No, it's your favorite senator from West Virginia and your favorite first supposedly bisexual legislator from Arizona who believes she's John McCain, and she's not.
And
My
ran
understanding rules-
like she was Bernie Sanders.
And right, and oh, I can't argue with that. I like Veg's comment. I think that's kind of spot on. And maybe it was because he had no political leanings either. A lot of people don't know this. Both parties recruited him because he'd never said what he was. But coming from Kansas, a more Republican area, that's what he went. I mean, but he really wasn't. So he didn't come through that. Just like Trump didn't come through it, but he wasn't a good human being. Eisenhower, I think, basically, yeah. I mean, again, I suppose if you believe being faithful to your wife, he never consummated that relationship.
Didn't Trump really blow it? If Trump had become like a liberal president and done all these things, with opening up the infrastructure, making deals so we could be friends with, I mean, whatever it was, he could have been the greatest president of the world, and he blew it.
In a fantasy world, and I'm not saying you live in it. I'm not saying like the QAnon is fantasy. But of course, it was impractical. But yes, if he had had any sense, because, Brian, just what we said, he had no political ties. He wasn't beholden to anyone, except I think what happened is because I mean, he's been on every side of the issue in New York, as a businessman, but he's just a corrupt individual at heart. And I think probably he's an opportunist, and he said, well, first of all, he didn't care about being the best president. He cared about benefiting Donald Trump. And I think ultimately, I don't think he couldn't have run as a Democrat. He ran as a Republican, and he could have still been an independent, even though he ran as a Republican. But yes, he completely blew it. I mean, 100 now. He doesn't look at it that way. I'm wondering, Brian, and I'm not so sure, because sometimes when you say things, you begin to believe them. I think that Trump really believes, because Trumps don't lose, especially Donald Trump, that election was stolen from him. Now, a couple irony points. I don't know how, but this just gets to the heart of the matter. I mean, even so, it's
no, but Dave, he has said things in the past. He said, if I shot someone on Fifth Avenue, I could get away with it. When he says I can get away with it, he knows it's wrong. He knows.
Well, yeah. Well,
he knows.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's why he's trying to put his judges in there, because he knows he's wrong.
Look at what he's really saying, Brian. Or, yes, he does. But what he's saying is, I'm above the law. I mean,
right. He's above everything.
Well, because he doesn't believe in anything other than himself.
He got away with everything. He didn't have stock options for his company. He was the boss, always.
I mean, we could go on all night. Just ask anybody who's ever worked for him, in New Jersey and that. Just a couple things that, I want to get to, just kind of tangential, but related to what we're saying. So would you say that the Republicans have made a huge, huge issue about fraudulent voting? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, except they didn't want to have the Virginia vote contested.
No. Wait, it gets a little bit worse. There is one now. Again, you don't know motive, right? So having said that, there is one person who appears to have attempted fraudulent voting in Virginia. One
Republican. It was like, wasn't he related to one of the candidates?
He's the governor's son. At 17, he walked into a polling place, said, I can vote. Now, I did not know this. In Virginia, you can vote at 17 in a primary if you are 18 by the time of the regular election. Well, this is a regular election, so you can't vote. If you're not 18, you can't vote. Now, that's bad enough, right? He left and returned, I think it was 30 minutes later, and said, no, you were wrong. I can do this. Now, was he, as they're trying to say, just a confused kid? Well, let me say this. Suppose he was. I don't know if I want a governor of my state who doesn't explain to his son what voting is. So, but again, isn't that ironic that every single time we run into somebody,
right? The Republicans are cheating, and within now, Joey asked a question about Jack Ciattarelli. I don't know, Joe, if he was cheating. I do know this is he's not giving in. He's not conceding the election, and that in itself is where you could have problems. You know.
Well, and then Brian, you really stole my thunder tonight, so we'll cease being friends. I really thought I had the ultimate whack job story until you brought up yours. So this is one I followed because it was only 2 stories on it. The Dallas QAnon. So if for anybody who isn't out there, this is kind of the story. And there's so much, not so much here, just so much where it is. Okay, so the basic premise was this, and it's nothing new. QAnon for a while now has been saying something along these lines. John F. Kennedy Jr. will return. Trump will run in 2024. They will run as a team, and they will, and their quote is, bring a new Christian nation to America. Now, I don't know much about John Kennedy Jr., but I know a lot about Donald Trump. They're kind of the last that I would say we're gonna lead us to the Christian side, but just say that. And this was supposed to take place on a specific day in this month, last week, and the appearance would be at Dealey Plaza, where John Jr.'s father was assassinated. So hundreds, showed up to see. Now we're going to move really into more whack territory. There were two rationales for this. One is that John Jr. was never died, and he's just been hiding out to align himself with Trump. Okay. The other, more scary, is that Donald Trump had petitioned God to restore JFK Jr. from the dead. Okay, so it can't get any worse than that. So the moment comes, it doesn't happen. Now, one person there who was a leader said, well, God does mysterious things. It's in God's time. We just got it wrong. Okay. But another persons and influential persons, and then jumped, as you were pointing out tonight on the media, jumped online and said, no, we got it wrong. It's not John Jr. It's his father who's going to return. And he's going to show up at tonight's Rolling Stones concert. Yes, this is what they're saying. So X number of QAnon people went outside of the Dallas venue. Well, they didn't see John Sr. there, so they explained it. So they said, verbatim, they said that John Kennedy is Keith Richard of the Rolling Stones. Man, you have all your bases covered there. Now, again, and they literally believed that Keith Richard was going to pull off this thing and reel himself to be John Kennedy, who they'd just been at the site where he was killed, but they don't believe he was killed.
And this is why you know how many people are fanatics about God. Really, I mean, it's just.
Well,
it's the
I have to
same
be
shit.
honest, sacrilegious though it may be. Let's do this. God is a creature of faith. You either believe or you don't. There is no evidence of any God anywhere that is hard empirical scientific evidence. And of course, the answer is, well, you have to believe. And that doesn't seem crazy to me. I mean, it may not be right, because if you don't harm anybody, I'm all for supporting that. But there is evidence that John Kennedy Sr. died, although it's been questioned. There is evidence that John Jr. died in that plane crash. There is evidence that if JFK were Keith Richard, even assuming that's correct, that let's see, what would he be now? He'd be 104 if he were alive today. A 104-year man can get on stage and put on makeup and play guitar like Keith Richard. So, I mean, the two, yes, your point is well taken. They're beliefs of faith, but I see more sense in believing in a God that there's no proof of than I do believing in those QAnon myths. Now, do you hear anybody denouncing them? No, because they have that out. They vote. I haven't found a QAnon leftist yet. I haven't found a QAnon liberal yet. I haven't found a QAnon Democrat yet. And so the Republican, I mean, think, Brian. I mean, I'm not hollering at you. I'm just saying, hollering at the American people. Look at who are Republicans. Let's look. White people, rich people, racists, KKK-like members, QAnon that are as insane as anybody being held in any mental institution today for any reason, fascists, your favorite Kyle Rittenhouse, a kid who thinks he can carry a gun and shoot whether it was legitimate or not, he shouldn't have it, the NRA, big oil, people who deny climate change, deny science, are anti-intellectual, deny women's rights, deny a woman the ultimate right what to do with her body. Have I mentioned anything good there? I haven't. Because they don't exist, Brian. They don't.
There's nothing good
The
about
Republican Party today does not exist. Now, the big question is, and we're not going to have to talk tonight, and I would really like to have a show devoted to this, but I don't want us to say so much. So we're going to sound out our audience, so audience, listen up. I really think it's important collectively that that this question is number one, and I don't have an answer for it. I don't even want to talk. I want to see somebody else has it. I don't, or maybe collectively we come up with it. That's the picture. Okay. America is divided. It's not going to resolve itself. One side or the other is going to win. Well, that would be good if I really thought the Democrats had the answers. You know, they don't. So what the hell are we going to do about this country? And I don't have the answer. Do you, Brian? I mean, I don't know what to do. I have no idea. I mean, I know this show. I know we speak out, but I mean, we're speaking. What's the proverb saying? We're singing, preaching.
Well,
to
maybe
the
we
choir,
should go
right?
back to where we started this show when I talked about the Russian psychologist. You talk about Maslow now. Do we say, okay, our needs come first before the issue? And I think that it's a question each of us has to ask, him or herself. What am I going to do? Like tonight, I figured this is what I can do right now. I mean, we'll have
Tonight's
15
show,
people
yes.
watching this show. I'm going to show.
Oh, Brian, may
these.
I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you vote? I know the answer, but tell everybody.
Yes, I voted.
And of course I voted. So I mean, that's the first step, right?
Right. And I waited in line for an hour and a half. That was nothing like the people of Georgia. So I had no problem doing it. No problem.
And
but I'm saying,
I voted
we need to do more because, people like Giuliani and Levin or whatever that fucker, you have to fight. Like Sandy mentioned Hal Sparks. He does a great job. I don't always agree with Hal Sparks, but it's great because he's usually spot on most of the time.
I'm not going to argue with you, me, Hal Sparks. I've seen what Sandy does in the environment, and it's not fruitless. But right now, we've done this show since May of last year. Is that correct? Give or take a week. I believe it was in May we started it.
March,
right?
I think.
March. I'm sorry. Okay, March. I knew it was an M month. Like I said, I've got senior moments now. And we knew that the immediate thing was to stop Donald Trump, do whatever we could with our limited resources.
And we did do it.
Even if we didn't affect, at least we did it. And you could celebrate for 2 or 3 days. And we both said...
And we were all on pins and needles because you didn't know what your neighbors were going to do, right?
Well, right. Well, I see that's...
Well, they did do something on the 6th,
No, but that's the case. And when you use neighbors, it is funny. Again, we are creatures of our environment. There are no Republicans existing where I live. I mean, I wasn't shocked to get on that boat, but I'm glad I did simply because I have to remember that sometimes what's the majority here is the minority, other places. You live where I lived. I was shocked that there's no other word. I was shocked that the vote was that close.
Well, look, they did say that usually every other election they're thrown out. So let's just say this. Like, you tell me, Dave. Bottom line is,
I'll
who
try.
won? He won.
Yeah.
Our guy won. That's it.
Very
Whether
good.
you win 42-0 or 42-43, you won.
I agree. But the problem becomes we don't know. And this is a problem with politics. I saw the quote again tonight. 24 hours in politics is like a week in the real world. And a week in politics is like a month. And a month in politics is like a year. We don't know from day to day, right? I mean, what really happens? Now, there's two things. You're absolutely right. From a sports analogy, the Democrats won. That's all that matters in this one column. But over here is, but they didn't win by what they should have, given the. So why was the vote so close? Now you have to examine that. Was it close because Democrats didn't vote because they have a high registered ratio over Republicans, or was it because Republicans tend to vote, or was it simply when which the old thing is, the in party becomes the out party,
or was it that the Republicans came out and voted like every one of them?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, and you have to break that down and you have to look at it. Now, in Virginia, what I found interesting, I did get a chance just today when I got back to look at it, was the county by county breakdown, and it was close. It was still like on our county. Arlington was 76 to 24% Democrat, and a couple others were like a bit, and then the Republicans were a little bit more. So it was turnout in Virginia. It was lack of turnout of the group that you and I know, and we praise them all the time. Black voters got Joe Biden elected, and women, black females.
And maybe we need more black candidates, Dave. I mean, whatever you need to do to get black people voting.
I don't.
Then I'm sure they did, but
no, Brian. Now we come around full circle. Now
we don't want to blame black people too for this.
Look,
it's just that they.
I'm sure Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, is a good person and has done well. She's ineffective now. Old, white. I'm just saying, yeah. So, but because power tends to hold on to itself, you could make an argument that Joe Biden is of another century, and he is, right? But he was the best thing, and now taking your argument, we said he won. Now, we know, or any rational thinking person knows, that Joe Biden is a better human being than Donald Trump. But if that's your only quality as president, think about this, and I've been thinking about it a lot. If that's your only quality as president, or if because of circumstances you find yourself restricted, I'm the first one to say the president has restrictions. I'd rather have the Supreme Court than I would the president of the United States.
But then we got to get, as Gary said here, it was a lack of turnout, and if that's the case, then we got to let it fire under people's asses.
Gary, it's the only thing, as I said, I didn't follow it, enough. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
But they said that there were still more Democratic votes than, I don't know, like 4 or 8 years ago by like 200,000. So
well, now there's something that I don't care about. I'm not saying I don't care what happened 4 or 8 years ago, because what happens is then political pundits who know more than you and I, except they have a couple fancy graphs. No. What matters is what Gary just pointed out. You need to ask yourself why. Not why did they vote Republican, but why didn't more Democrats vote if it made it too close?
Well, the poor, it might be the poor, because the poor cannot rationalize this. Again, it goes back to Maslow. It's the same thing as Russia. Why don't the Russians go out there and get involved? They gave up.
I agree with you. I directed us back there for this very reason. So, what's the answer? The answer is to make sure that
you don't become Russia.
No, that you can't. The answer is to make sure that we meet the lower level of Maslow's needs. No American tonight, unless they choose go to bed hungry. No American tonight, unless they choose to, should be homeless. And no American tonight who is seeking help for mental issues or for drug addiction or alcohol addiction should be turned away because there's no room at the inn. That we could do. But you can't if you're bickering back and forth, and there's just not. So first of all, I think the first step, Brian, honestly, is this. There are legal ways to end the filibuster. Now, it may be restored later. It may be protected for you later. I don't give it. We're talking about today. Unless the filibuster is overridden, you will not get the John Lewis Voting Act in, and unless you get the John Lewis, or not John Lewis, a Voting Act in, and what is it? 133 bills were circulating in voter suppression, have been passed in 18 states currently, with others still awaiting it, making it more difficult to vote. Now, again, back to your Maslow. I mean, you really struck on something, like, okay? Well, if you don't have the money, if you can't take a day off from work, right, to vote,
Right.
and it's easy for me to say, take it. Well, what about a boss who says you don't come in today, you're fired? Can you really do? The boss can do that. What if about your polling place, you don't have a car, and your polling place now has been put, which is in some cases is Texas. Think about this. Where you vote is 70 miles from where you live.
Wow.
Now, the answer to that is to get people with cars and get, I mean, the idea of it is, so how do you, and you can't worry, with the filibuster, you can't worry about what happens now. Because I'll be honest with you.
I mean, how are you even going to get it? You're going to have to get some Republicans because Manchin and Sinema are gone.
No, what I'm saying is, you have to increase the vote and make it more opportunity, because if you don't, you said it, Brian, and it's true. Republicans will vote no matter what, because those that are many of them are rich enough to do that, but the ones that are poor are scared to death that the minority evil horde, being the pedophiles or the blacks or the or the godless or whatever, or Joe Biden having naked showers with his daughter, will be in place. So they will vote. And you said something earlier I want to comment on, because you were so right on. I don't know if you knew how right on you are. Love's a pretty cool thing, but when it comes to voting, fear is a much better motivator than love. And the Republicans are geniuses at using fear, at what I call the boogeyman. And what I mean by that is, who are the enemy of white, poor people? The Republicans. They've always been. Not always. I mean, not in Abraham Lincoln's time, but in the modern Republican. And I think it was Veggie, whoever said tonight, or Anthony or somebody said, the last good Republican was Eisenhower. Nationally, I think that's true. I think nationally, now there was, actually, was a very good man and a very good, was George Romney, Mitt's father, much stronger than Mitt. Nelson Rockefeller, I mean, he had some problems, keeping Johnson in his pants. John Lindsay, the Republican, they're gone now. In fact, I was okay with Republican, who cares what I'm just saying. I was thinking about this a lot today. When they were fiscally conservative and socially adjusted, okay, we're just arguing over money, right? We're arguing where to spend the money. Now they've become malicious human beings who will spend the money as long as it goes to them and still have no social conscience. So, I mean, you're right, Brian, we can do this show, but I really wish there was a way that we could do this show. Not that I want to lose any of our viewers, but we did this show exclusively, only people who watch Fox News more than 2 hours a day can view our show. Well, that's not going to happen. Right. Because you pointed out, Brian, so well. I'm bombarded with anything that you want to believe, you tend to believe it. Okay, well, let's change it. Hun, I'm tired of Fox News. Let's change it. Let's go to OAN. No, let's go to Newsmax first. Well, they're worse than Fox. Oh, no. Let's go to OAN. How many Republicans do you think, other than a couple say, well, I watch MSNBC to see the evils? I mean, I got to be honest with you. I don't watch Fox. I don't watch OAN.
I do watch them. Ronnie and I will, we're talking about minutes, like 5 minutes, 3 minutes.
Oh, I know. No,
just to get a feel for what's going on with them.
I always said that's important. I don't do it anymore because I know what's going on. I mean, I'm not above that. So all it does is make me angry. And so I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, I think it is good that you do that, but I've evolved beyond that. I mean, not that that's better. I'm just saying, I don't really, what I want to find is something that we can do more than what we're doing right now. Gerald Ford, yes. Okay, Joey raises an interesting point. I think Gerald Ford was a good man. I think, though, however, when he became president, he was out of his league. Not because he was dumb, he was smart. He was actually, Chevy Chase destroyed Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford was actually our most athletic president. I mean, he was a good athlete. And because he stumbled a couple of times and Chevy Chase would fall off that ladder. But I think where Eisenhower was a strong leader, I don't think Gerald Ford was that. So that's why I think you're right, Joey. And I mentioned others, so I think you're absolutely right on that end. But I would say the last person qualified for the Republicans to be president was Eisenhower. And you could fault Eisenhower for taking Nixon as a running mate. He hated Richard Nixon, but he took him to win, just like JFK hated Lyndon Johnson, but took him to win. Now, does that, does that weaken Eisenhower? And certainly, the liberal icon Kennedy was one of the least liberal Democrats ever. He was a war hawk. He was a conservative. His father, however, because being Irish, was steeped in the Democratic, So I mean, so yeah, it's just confusing. Politics. I guess I'm going to sum up with this. Since 1968, as a kid, through college, working SDS to bring the country down and protesting, as a journalist, I have to be apolitical, but see it as an educator, trying to get my students to think of it beyond the emotion of my dad is a Republican, whatever. Okay.
By the way, can I answer this, Anthony? I did privately talk to you about this in the past, but I'll just throw it out there. Paul, understand
come
that,
on tomorrow.
Well, I understand that, but with Paul, part of the problem was Paul didn't want to talk politics, and understand it. Paul doesn't like politics. Okay,
I think Paul. I would extend. I mean, yeah, and
I felt that this was crucial.
I'm going to Brian. I'm going to override you here because you and Paul have been friends forever, and right. Paul and I are friends.
We remain friends.
Here's the thing. No, anybody who asks that question is very simple, and I'm going to speak for you, Brian. Dot with the ties. Paul can come on anytime he chooses. I enjoy him. I think he adds a valuable perspective, but it's Paul's choice not to be involved. So I agree. Yeah, I like to have Paul on the show. And Paul has every right not to want to be on the show because it has nothing personal to do with any of us, is what I'm saying. Paul has a kind of a political position that he doesn't agree with us on everything. And that's fine. And he feels that the show should be more, not balanced, it's not that, but not as directed as what it is. But sure, if Paul wants to come on, I know you have problems.
But this is a political show, Anthony, and it does take a stand. And it says, I mean, Paul was initially part of Divided We Stand, and then he posted a post that wanted to attack Biden, and I had to throw it out. It's a great friend of mine. I had to throw the post out because one of the rules was we're not going to attack the Democratic candidate who's going to try to run against this asshole. And it's just our philosophy is different on how we handled this situation.
And not that he's wrong, not that we're right.
But I did mention to this before, Anthony, in our private messages. I did mention that.
I think it's a valid question. The irony of it, and I said I was going to say, but let's tie it into everything. So on this ship, they had a meeting. They always do, where names don't mean anything. Alan Rubens is the head of this, putting on these things, and people have questions. And I give Alan and cruise director, who's the best cruise director I've ever seen. He was the youngest cruise director in the history of America. Now he's 42. He's there, and they sit down and they ask, give us any question, and they will. And one came up, listed on this bill, were the Nelson twins. I don't even know, they're Gunnar and somebody else. And they were going to do a tribute to their father, because once the Nelson twins kind of had their own hits and they've fallen into doing that. And Alan said, oh, yeah, do you want to know why they were in the show? Very simple. Everybody on that ship had to be vaccinated, and for their own personal reasons, they chose not to vaccinate. The moment they, they of their own, and we weren't going to bring them on, and they weren't willing to vaccinate, and that was fine. He said we weren't enemies, and that's kind of similar to Paul. I mean, or anybody. We would take anybody to the show, but if you don't want to be here, we don't want to force you on.
There's some good news from Sandy, apparently, at least from what she says here. Antonio coming around to whatever, I don't know.
Well, Sandy, that's Brian. That's Brian, the old man, being upset by the. And we're not getting into personalities. I think Antonio, as an intellectual, as an academic thinker, is brilliant. My question to him, and he knows it, and we've talked about it all before, is, okay, give me something else that would work. And I agree with Antonio. Certainly right now, what the Democrats are doing isn't working, right? Certainly if you're an environmentalist, you have to be terrified. And I'm just talking about anybody who supports it. I mean, I'm not, I don't say card carrier. I mean, there are other things that I can't fight at all. But if you're really going to ask me, what is the most important issue facing the world today? No question. It's our destruction of the planet, and it proceeds daily. But I would ask Greta, I would ask anybody, what is your plan? I mean, I'm not trying to put the burden on you, but I mean, Joe Biden's doing, I mean, he's more of an environmentalist than Donald Trump is, but it's still not enough.
And he knows he has to do more, but he knows he can't get anything done because of Manchin.
He can't even get done. He can't even get done what his agenda is.
Right.
Now,
He's stuck.
I have heard, and I don't know the political, I don't know anything, but I did hear somebody say that he should have taken the issues that resonate with the Republicans. I'm not talking about the leaders, forget them now. And just do those and get that done, and then move on some of the other issues. The problem with that is the other issues are more important to America's survival than the infrastructure, right? If the buildings and bridges fall down, that's horrible. But if democracy falls, and that's my last word. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to tell you, I'm basically an optimist, I would not bet that in 10 years, I hope to still be alive. I would not bet tonight that American democracy will just survive for 10 years. If it does, I will say this, it will be secure for a little while. You know, I mean, it's never permanent. But if you'd ever told me that, okay, those of us who fought with SDS or against the war, and remember, the environmental movement came, I mean, it was predated a little bit with things, but it came out of the 60s, it did all that. We were fighting both sides, right? I mean, we were fighting the Republicans, we were fighting the Democrats, you know, it was a war. And now it's shifted to where we're fighting for a party, and then the party disappoints us or it doesn't do what we want. And that doesn't bode well for America. So that's it for me tonight. I hope we can be more optimistic next week. I don't think so, but we'll do the best we can to point out to you. And again, I appreciate everybody. And I don't speak for myself. I do have an ego, but but everybody tunes into this show. You really don't know how much it means, not to Brian, not to me, but I do follow what you're saying to each other. I guess we're just the meeting house, Brian. You know what I mean? We just are the meeting house. And anybody could do what we do, but they wouldn't have as nice view. I mean, they talk to one another. Look how, we've had, and we're not going into names, we've had some people that really face some tough things. And while we're ranting on politics, because that's what we do, I'm watching the comments and they go, they really are helpful to each other. So, it's an overused term. But now we need to really sit down and hunker down. That's a terrible cliche. We need to just really work to figure out and you can't look at a long range plan. We're beyond that. What's the next step that this group or those like us need to do to assure that democracy as we know it does not perish from this earth? I think Abraham Lincoln said that. So I'm going to end the end. Brian, have a great week. Let's hope it's always better politically. It isn't. But again, we'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you, Dave. It's great having you back. It really is. So thank you, everybody. It's been a quick 2 hours, I suppose, but it's been 2 hours. And I guess we go into standard time, or back to standard time. So
I can't even tell what time it is when we're regular time. So I don't know. We do something this week. We fall back or spring ahead or jump off the cliff. We do something. I don't know. Right.
So in any case, let me see if I can dig up something and send you out of here, folks. I don't know what I have here. Oh, for God's sakes.
Brian, remember, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I know you have remember, I can't think of her name, Natasha, and the films you made when you were a young man.
I did make that.
Could you? No.
I don't know if I can find it, though.
No, you actually had sex tapes before they were known as sex tapes.
Go.
Could you show one of those tonight?
I have an audio.
Oh, an audio of a sex tape. Good.
I think it was an audio of you.
Now, I've run my mouth all night. No, I want to see visuals. I'm a visual learner. I want to see what you and Natasha did.
All right. Let me see if something's good here.
I loved her as soon as I saw her.
I didn't know I had this on.
Warmth and intelligence radiating from her eyes. A smile.
Right. This is sick and perverted. I'm leaving the page.